10 minutes, that's all it takes to lose someone completely. Tonight, a husband and his wife try to explain the 10 minutes that vanished from both of their minds at exactly the same time. This one landed in the Haunt Pulse inbox a few weeks ago, and I want to be honest with you, I read it 3 times before I believed I understood what he was actually describing. It's not a story about something jumping out of the dark. It's quieter than that, and it might be worse. The man who sent this is a husband and a father of 2, a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, both asleep in the back seat the night this happened. He didn't want to give us his name, and honestly, once you hear what he and his wife went through, you'll understand why he'd rather stay a stranger to us. He called it, "My wife and I both lost the same 10 minutes on the drive home." Most of the posts I used to read on nights like this, I'd roll my eyes at. People not paying attention. People who fell asleep at the wheel and want a better story than that. So I know exactly how this is going to sound. I don't have an explanation, so here it is anyway. We just left my parents' place, about an hour and a half out from home. My wife was in the passenger seat. The kids were out cold in the back. The way kids get after a big dinner and a dark highway. It was maybe 7, 8 at night, fully dark outside. My wife had her head turned toward the window the way she always rides. She gets carsick if she looks at her phone, so she just watches the road go by. We were talking, nothing important. The kind of talk you forget the second it's over. There's one stretch of that drive you need to picture. A long tunnel cut through the mountain. And the second you come out the other side, there's an exit lit up on both sides by strip malls and big box stores. It's not a quiet stretch of road you could sleepwalk through. It's bright. It's loud with light, even at night. We'd driven it 100 times. Not so often we were running on autopilot, but enough that we didn't need GPS to find our way home. The last thing I remember with any clarity is being 2, maybe 3 miles out from that tunnel. The next thing I remember, we were 10 miles past it, past the tunnel, past our exit, past the lit-up parking lots and the gas stations and everything that marks that part of the drive as ours. I sort of snapped back into myself and said it out loud before I even understood what I was saying. Wait, where are we? Did we miss the exit? Here's the part that still gets me every time I think about it. My wife turned to me and she looked as lost as I felt. She said she had no idea where we were either. I pulled up the GPS right there on the highway, punched in home, and watched the map redraw itself. We were 7 miles past our exit, 7 miles of driving gone with nothing behind them. I want you to sit with that for a second, because we did. Neither of us remembered the tunnel. Neither of us remembered the exit. Neither of us remembered the shopping center that lights up half a mile of highway on both sides, the one you'd have to be unconscious to miss. If it was just me, I could live with that. Zoning out happens. Everyone's driven somewhere and arrived without remembering half the trip, but it wasn't just me. It was both of us, at the exact same time, for the exact same 10 minutes. I checked the kids first, still asleep, still buckled in, nothing out of place. I checked myself next, no headache, no disorientation beyond the obvious, no sense that anything had happened to me physically. My wife said the same. 1 second we were talking about something forgettable, 3 miles from a tunnel we've driven 100 times. The next, we were 10 miles past it, and both of us were starting the same sentence at the same moment. We didn't say much the rest of the drive. What is there to say? We got the kids inside, put them to bed like it was any other night, and then we sat at the kitchen table for a long time without really talking. Just going over it, trying to find the crack in the story where it made sense. There isn't one. That's the part I keep circling back to. If you ask me to bet, I'd bet on nothing supernatural. I'd bet on some boring explanation, fatigue, a strange kind of shared inattention. Something about that stretch of road that lulls 2 exhausted parents into a fog they don't remember entering. But betting isn't knowing, and I don't know. We still take that road home from my parents' place. We have to, there's no other way. Every single time, right around that tunnel, one of us goes quiet, and I think we're both doing the same thing, watching the clock, counting the minutes, waiting to see if it happens again. It hasn't, not yet. He told us that's where he's left it, not as a story with an ending, but as a question he and his wife still ask each other every time that tunnel comes into view. Imagine sitting down to watch your favorite show, and in less time than it takes to blink, 90 minutes are simply gone. No memory, no explanation, just a different channel and a clock that doesn't make sense. This next email came in through the Haunt Pulse inbox from someone describing something that happened back in 2007, and what strikes me most isn't the fear in it, it's the certainty. This isn't someone guessing at what might have happened. This is someone who has spent years ruling out every ordinary explanation, one by one. At the time, the sender was 16 years old, a healthy teenager with no history of blackouts, no neurological conditions, nothing in his medical history that could explain what he's about to describe. He's chosen to stay anonymous with us, and after hearing this, I think you'll agree some stories don't need a name attached to feel real. He titled it simply, "Where Did I Go?" While you're listening to this, the odds of you being teleported somewhere else right now are extremely low, but they're not zero. Keep that in mind. Back in 2007, I was in my brother's room watching Family Guy. There was a gag in that episode I'd been looking forward to seeing again, something small, something dumb, the kind of thing that makes a 16-year-old happy on an ordinary night. I was watching it, and then I wasn't. I need you to understand this wasn't like blinking. Blinking has a gap you can feel, even if it's small. This had no gap at all. It was faster than that. Faster, honestly, than I think my brain was built to process, because even as it happened, some part of me was struggling to catch up with what my own eyes were telling me. 1 second, I'm sitting in my brother's room. The next, instantly, immediately, with nothing in between, I'm standing in the bathroom, staring at my own reflection in the mirror. Try to picture that happening to you right now, reading this, and then with no warning, no transition, no sense of movement at all, you're standing somewhere else entirely, looking at your own face. I stood there for a second, completely thrown. Then I did the only thing that made sense to me. I walked back to my brother's room to catch the rest of the episode. That's when it got worse. A different show was playing, still Adult Swim. Still the right channel, but not the episode I'd been watching. Not even close to where I'd left off. My first thought wasn't fear. It was confusion, sliding straight into irritation. Did the network change the show mid-episode? I needed an answer, so I went looking for one. And downstairs is where things stopped making sense entirely. I went straight to the kitchen to check the clock. Family Guy starts at 9. I'd been maybe 5 minutes into the episode when everything went black and white and instant. I looked at the clock and I stopped walking. It read 10:38, an hour and a half. Gone, not slowly, not in a way I could account for even a little. 90 minutes that had passed faster somehow than the blink I never even felt happen. My first reaction, honestly, was anger. I missed the joke. That's what I thought before anything else. It took a few seconds longer for the real question to surface underneath it. What was my body doing for an hour and a half? Where was I? Nobody in my house had seen me. Not my brother, not anyone, I asked. An hour and a half, and not one person in that house could place me anywhere. So there are really only two ways to explain that. Either I was somewhere nobody happened to look, which for an hour and a half in a house that size feels like a stretch. Or I wasn't in the house at all. My body was somewhere else and then it wasn't. I was a healthy 16-year-old. No head injuries, no neurological history, no drugs, no alcohol, nothing in my system that could explain a gap like that. I've never doubted, not once, how instantaneous it felt. That's the detail that has stayed with me longer than anything else, not the missing time itself, but how fast it happened. Faster than thought. Faster than fear could even catch up to me. I still don't have an answer. I've turned it over more times than I can count, looking for the ordinary explanation that has to be sitting somewhere underneath it. I haven't found one yet, so I'll ask you the same question I've been asking myself for almost 20 years now. Where did I go? Nearly 2 decades later, and he still doesn't have an answer he trusts. Maybe that's the part of this one that stays with you longest, not the missing 90 minutes, but the not knowing that never quite goes away. A dark staircase, a locked house, and the unmistakable feeling of walking straight into another person who wasn't there. Our last email tonight is a quiet one, and I mean that in the best and worst sense of the word. There's no chase, no scream, no dramatic reveal. Just one ordinary evening that stopped making sense for about 4 seconds and never really stopped not making sense years later. This one comes from a young woman who was 19 when she wrote to us, describing something that happened 3 years earlier in the house she grew up in. She's asked to remain anonymous, and after you hear this, I think you'll understand why she still isn't entirely sure what to call what happened to her. She titled her email, "Bumped into a man in my staircase." I used to read stories like this all the time, a couple of years back, and I always figured if something like this ever happened to me, I'd have some big, dramatic account to give. I don't. What I have is small and strange, and it stuck with me anyway. I was 19 when I sent this, and it happened about 3 years before that. My house has 2 floors. My grandmother lives downstairs. My parents and I live upstairs. That night, I'd had dinner with her, said goodnight, and headed for the staircase that connects her place to ours. The layout matters here, so let me walk you through it. You leave my grandmother's apartment through a door, and immediately past that door, the staircase starts. Narrow, white walls, white steps, nothing else in that space except a coat racked directly across from the door, a few jackets hanging off it. The stairs themselves go up and to the right. The lights are motion activated, but they don't kick on right away. You need to climb 6 or 7 steps before they trigger. That night, I started up in the dark, looking down at my phone, checking something. Not really paying attention to the space around me the way you don't when you've walked the same stairs 1,000 times before. And then completely out of nowhere, I walked straight into something. It felt like a person. Not a wall, not a railing, a chest. Solid. A body. I felt the impact against my head first, before I even registered what I was walking into. I was still looking down at my phone, so I didn't look up right away. My first instinct, embarrassingly, was to close my open tabs. Not because there was anything to hide. Just an old habit, not wanting my parents to glance over my shoulder at whatever I'd been doing on my phone. My immediate assumption was that it was my dad, which doesn't even make sense. Looking back, my dad isn't especially tall, and whatever I just walked into felt like it towered over me. A handful of things happened almost at once. I stepped to the side to let him pass. I kept climbing. I said out loud, "Sorry," the automatic apology you give anyone you bump into without meaning to, and then the motion lights clicked on. I finally looked up. There was nobody there, not on the stairs above me, not below me. Nowhere in that narrow white stairwell that has exactly one way in and one way out. I hadn't heard footsteps. I hadn't heard a door. There was no one to have walked past me and nowhere for anyone to have gone. I stood there for a second, and here's the part that still confuses me more than anything else. I wasn't scared. Not in that moment. My biggest worry, standing there in an empty stairwell I just apologized to nobody, was whether my parents, sitting on the couch at the top of the stairs, had heard me shout sorry to an empty staircase. They hadn't. I went to bed that night without being especially shaken by it. It wasn't until months later, thinking back on it in idle moments, that it started to actually unsettle me, the physical certainty of it. The chest, the height, the solid weight of something that had absolutely no reason to be there and no way to have left without me hearing it. I lived in that house another 12 years after that night. Nothing like it ever happened again. Not once. I've turned it over with friends more times than I can count. The easiest explanation is that I hallucinated the whole thing. I was the only one who experienced it, after all, and I don't have anyone to corroborate a single second of it. I've wondered too about something as mundane as carbon monoxide, given how old the house is and how many appliances run through it. I don't know enough to say whether that could really cause something like this. Probably not something this specific, this solid. I still don't have an answer I'm confident in. I'm not asking you to believe it was anything more than an empty staircase and an overactive mind. I'm just telling you what I felt, and what I felt was a man standing exactly where no man could have been. She told us that's where she's left it too, not with an answer, but with the memory of a chest she walked into, in a stairwell with nowhere for anyone to hide and nowhere for anyone to go.